All right, we are recording, so hit the blue button that says you understand we're recording. Unless you talk, you should not be. I'm still working out the kinks on this, but unless you talk, you should not be in the video, even if you have your video on. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. And I did not prepare my clicker machine. Robert Harvey. What was that one? Which one was the one that worked? What an entertaining video here we're posting for everybody to watch. Rob Harvey bumbling around with his stuff. Aha! Okay, here we go. Now we're ready. So welcome to those in the room and to those online and to those who will be watching in the future. Today we're going to spend the next hour talking about self-management. Okay. I took a training on the MyODP site, which is kind of what sparked my interest to run this. So they have a couple good ones on there. Yeah, so everybody should have a piece of paper, good paper. Okay, so if you're at home, make sure you have a paper and something to write with. It's going to be very important during the training. Throughout the training, you are going to get 3 code phrases. You need those 3 code phrases in order to pass the the post test. That's what we call it. Some of it will be information that you should learn from the training, and then the other thing will be the 3 code phrases that I tell you during the training. All right, so quick reminder, because we're recording this, please do not use client initials, client names, client specific information. Because we're recording, it's better to kind of hold your questions and keep them in the chat, and then we can address them if they make sense to address for the general audience. But specific questions you have, please bring them to your supervision. That's what supervision is for. And also bring your data to supervision. All right, so this is what I want on your piece of paper, is what I drew here. It does not have to be fancy like this. Basically, I just need a 4x5x2 box. Okay, with did I pay attention, 1 through 4. You don't even really have to put anything in this box. Just know that you're going, your key is a happy face, a straight face, or a sad face. So take a moment there to populate your grid. Perfect, lovely, wonderful, good. You're all good data takers. So your target behavior for this training on self-management, so you're going to be managing your own behavior, is for you to be paying attention. And my definition of paying attention, okay, is that you will have your eyes on the screen or the speaker. It should be the speaker. You guys here can watch me. If you're at home, eyes on this screen. You should keep your phone down and or away and not be using it. Ashley's already laughing. You should be taking notes of some kind, either on paper or in your mind. So I will allow either of those things. You should be thinking about application, how you're going to use this on your cases or in your life. And you should be ignoring any distractions that occur. Like when my friend Gwen comes through the door, we're just gonna keep rolling along. So these are the things I want you to do. You're not going to fail if you don't do these things, but these are the things that I want you to be tracking your own behavior of. Okay. Why are we doing that? Well, because it's a training on self-management. That's what we're learning to teach other people to do. So what is self-monitoring? And I'm going to kind of use the terminology slightly the same. So I'm going to be saying self-management, self-monitoring. Self-monitoring is really the first piece of self-management. But I'm kind of interchangeably using the language at some time because self-monitoring is kind of the one that most people talk about. Most of the research calls it self-monitoring. So here's the fancy thing. You'll see all of my articles that I use for this at the end of the PowerPoint if you'd like to look them up. If you'd like me to send you PDFs, let me know. I can do that. More simply put, really, we're teaching someone to record their own behavior. And in order to record your own behavior, you have to be aware of your own behavior. So that we're decreasing the need for other people to prompt you to do that. Okay. So, you know, my hope, you know, going back to the beginning here is that I put my expectations out there, and throughout this training, my hope is that I don't have to keep saying like, hey, Rosemary, are you paying attention? Hey, Ashley, you're playing with your phone. I don't want to be doing those things. I want you guys to monitor your own behavior. Okay, so that's kind of my hope there. And that's the purpose of self-management, self-monitoring, is for people to be aware of that. So a few, like, these are like long-term examples. So these aren't what we're going to teach necessarily, most likely the kids that we are working with, but these are examples of self-monitoring in practice. Okay, so filtering your thoughts and actions. You're doing this constantly. You're saying like, what am I doing? What am I saying? What am I thinking? Are these things that I should stop, do more of? How are people reacting to these things? So this is something you're doing constantly. Budgeting, right? So determining how much money you're going to spend, how much money did I spend? You know, something that Rob Harvey has never been good at, unfortunately. Oh, I have money, I'll spend it. Oh, there's money left on my credit card, I'll spend it. Yeah, don't listen to me. Never come to Rob Harvey for financial advice. Counting calories, to-do lists, you know, all these things, quitting a bad habit, right? All these things are things that you can use self-management to do rather than relying on somebody else to constantly say like, hey, did you count your calories? What did you eat? You know, what are you supposed to be eating? You know, it's better to be able to handle those things yourself. So why do we do it? So, you know, I get caught in these, you know, webs of reading through research and information on, you know, the autistic population. And it's terrifying, right? It's scary stuff. So they're underemployed, right? Like heavily underemployed. They're either not working or they're working in jobs that are just, you know, really not challenging them, not giving them enough money to have the things that they want or need. So that's hard. They're often living with their parents in perpetuity. And you know, like we could be frank about this and say like, yeah, like some of the individuals that we work with are going to need that support forever. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. But what we can kind of take kind of some worry in is that there's definitely people that we work with who could be living independently, who could be working, who could be, you know, going out and, you know, meeting people. So, so that's a big thing. Lacking friends, like if you look at the ratings of like, do they have friends? Do they, you know, engage in meaningful relationships? It's sad. It's real low. So a lot of the individuals in the groups that I run, I do surveys that say like, aside from this group, what does your social life look like? And 90% of the responses are not at all. This is all that this is what I do. This is my social life. You know, so that's not really where I'm happy that they have that, but I'd rather that they have the options that the rest of us do. And you know, this is where you get caught up, like, does autism create a lack of self-awareness? Or is there something about the way that they interact with the world that ends up with them having not as good social self-awareness as other people? And those things kind of seem, like I said, the same thing. You kind of get wrapped up, you know, it's kind of like a chicken or the egg kind of thing. But whatever way you cut it, okay, individuals with autism or autistic individuals, you typically kind of have a barrier in that self-awareness. And it's also, we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but it is a requirement for a lot of our step-down services. You can't go to group services, you can't go to outpatient therapy unless you can reflect on your own behavior. So if we don't add this skill, then there's a barrier to them receiving additional skills. So here's the self-management umbrella. I took this directly from my ODP training. So if you take that training, they talk largely about this. And we're going to start with the first half of this pie. It's not a pie, it's an umbrella, Ashley. We're going to start with the first kind of set of skills. There we go, better. Which is, I'm going to say easier, but I don't necessarily, you know, want to qualify it or quantify it in that direction. I just want to say that this is where you need to start. You need to have these skills in order to do these skills. Okay. So self-monitoring or self-observation. So this is the thing that we kind of started with, right? So the act of self-monitoring in and of itself for the purposes of self-management as a whole, okay, is really just deciding on your own if the targeted behavior happened or it didn't happen. I did it, I didn't do it, okay? Did I eat the jelly bean or did I not eat the jelly bean? Did I raise my hand, did I not raise my hand? Whatever the target is that we decided on, whether it's something you want to see more of or less of, that's, yes, Rob, we get it, move on. We understand, yes or no, that's all it is, okay? So then we move to self-reporting. So now you're taking that information that you noticed, okay? And you're taking some sort of data on that. And there's a tremendous amount of ways that you can do this. And the ways that, that it usually, the most typical way is you're just marking your form, So you're checking the yes or no box. I thought this is really, I found this, I've never seen anything like this before, but this says, did you brush your teeth? And it's got the days and AM and PM, and you just slide the thing over and it goes, they didn't start it in red. They're probably trying to get away from the red is bad kind of, but you slide it over and it's green underneath, like the thing on the porta potty door, like in use, not use. And I thought, oh, and you could probably, it looks like this is something you can customize for basically anything, right? But we can do this, we don't need this fancy slider jig to do that. We can just put it on a piece of paper, like you guys did, right? You could laminate it and then you could use dry erase markers on it, but just remember, once you've laminated something, you can't really modify it. You can, I've always liked the taking, moving, depositing tokens. This is supposed to represent this. Sometimes you probably look at my pictures and you're like, where did that picture come from? Well, I do a lot of Google searching and sometimes I start with something and I think it's going to be good and it just isn't. Oh, Corinne, welcome, my name. Sometimes I think it's going to be great, and sometimes I get exactly what I want, and sometimes I don't. So, but there's something like visceral in like taking. We used to have, when I was in like first grade, we had beans, and you'd move beans from one cup to another bean, and just the sound of the bean clinking into the cup. There's something like that feels great. So whatever it is, you're taking something tangible and you're placing it in something to represent that the behavior occurred. Or using a counting device, something like this, a clicker, whatever it might be. So you just want some sort of physical representation of the behavior that occurred. Right, Ashley? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Self-questioning. Okay. So this is kind of part of we got these two cute little boys in the mirror. This one's cuter. That's not nice to qualify cuteness. But here's really, this is it's all kind of like packaged together, right? So how do you know if you did it or not do it without kind of doing the self-questioning piece? So you might say like, why didn't that come first? I don't know, because that's the way they put it in the article, okay? But you should be, so you want them to be paying attention to their own behavior, saying like, am I doing it? Am I not doing it? Is it happening? So that's a self-questioning piece, okay? So that's your first. So they lump self-monitoring and observation together. So that's your first side of the piece, puzzle, umbrella, okay, spectrum, whatever you want to call it. So now let's talk briefly about the second side. Like, wow, we're breezing through this. We're going to be done real soon. No. There's so many other things after we establish our umbrella of skills that go into self-management. So self-evaluation. Okay, so this is a slightly more complicated skill than just observing. Okay, so over here, we're just monitoring, we're questioning, I don't like that word, but over here, we're now taking that information and we're comparing it over time, right? So we're looking at, am I doing better than last week, than last month? Am I on the right track to where I want to be going, okay? So that can be a hard thing, that can be a hard skill for you to do, right? So say like you're on a new, eating program, right? And you usually you lose weight right away. And if you're working out too, maybe you're gaining weight because you're gaining muscle mass and, all this stuff is going on. And are you really going in the right direction, right? It's kind of hard to determine that. So, if you're just teaching some of our learners self-management, this might not be something that they can do right away. you might need to be doing this part for them, okay? All right. So your 3 key phrases during this, the first thing you need to do, boom, explosion. First thing you need to do is you need to mark on your paper from the beginning until now. Did you smiley face, pay perfect attention? Did you straight face, pay pretty good attention? Or did you sad face, not pay attention? Remember the guidelines in the beginning. So record our behavior, good, recorded, good. Listen, Ashley, it's okay that you put a sad face on there, right? That's self-awareness is very, very important. Everybody at home, you should be marking that too. And also with the explosion, you get your first key phrase, and your 3 key phrases today will be the 3 shows that Rob is currently watching on streaming services, okay? So show number 1 is Always Sunny in Philadelphia, okay? So keyword, key phrase number 1 is Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Last time I say it, key phrase number 1, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And you don't have to know how to spell these or what they're perfect, because it's going to be multiple choice and it's going to say which are the keywords that were present during this training. So number 1, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Moving on. Okay, we got a comment there, Ashley. Love that show. It's a hilarious show. Although it will make you lose your faith in humanity if you watch it, it's like it's not real people. Okay, it's just a show. They're all terrible. That's why it's so funny. Okay. So our next step that we want is self-reinforcement and also self-punishment. Okay. So you know, if you're kind of engaged in one of these behaviors, you need to be able to withhold reinforcement when you don't do the thing you're supposed to do, okay? So did you earn it, did you lose it? It's really that simple, and then you're delivering it, as opposed to needing somebody else to make that decision and then deliver it. Most of our learners in our IBHS home program are going to need you to do this step. Many of our learners in our group services should be doing some of this step by themselves, okay? And I'd be really curious to talk to Corinne about outpatient services and where she thinks most of those patients would fall, but we don't have time for that right now. You don't have to thunder kick the food away when you're choosing not to do it. I just thought it was I just Googled saying no to food, and I thought that was great. You know, just sometimes the pictures choose themselves. You know, sometimes you choose the pictures. So what are the benefits? We kind of touched on these. We're kind of going to come back to these a few times because we want buy-in, right? I want your buy-in, and I'm your boss, so you know you must buy in, or else great punishment will occur. No, that's not true. But you know, hopefully you guys are buying in because this is training and I have my words are valuable to you. But we want the caregivers that we work with to buy into this so they understand why we're doing it. We want the kids that we're working with are ready to kind of process this kind of information. We want them to know why it's important for them to do. Because it would be easier just for us to do it for them, right? So what are the benefits? So it leads to self-determination. Right? So the kids can kind of guide their own lives. They can make more choices. They can decide where they're going to go, what they're going to do, what they're going to do with their time. If they don't have the ability to self-monitor, it's going to be really difficult for them to do that. They're going to walk, they're going to walk in the streets and they're going to, just take stuff off of shelves, and they're going to, engage in all kinds of behavior that limits their ability to self-determine. Increased independence is just another version of that, right? They can maybe live by themselves or have a job or go places by themselves. You can drop them off at the skating rink, which just seems like the most dangerous place in the whole entire world, right? But my parents used to drop me off at the skating rink all the time. That's how old I am. And increased inclusion, right? So they can be included in things that they weren't included in before. More benefits, okay? It allows us to back out our services, right? And in a couple months, we're going to have a training kind of specifically on transitioning of services. but it is, you know, the insurance companies are very strict on this, but we should also be strict on it. Our job is to work ourselves out of a job, to give the learners that we're working with the skills that they need so they don't need us anymore. We don't want them to be dependent on us, right? And I recognize that's super, super hard. And from a person who's working with adults who I worked with when they were 2, 3, 5 years old, it's hard for me to stand up here and tell you, but you know, really that's because I didn't do a fantastic job when they were little. Like if I had done better, they wouldn't need to be in my services because they'd be out there, you know, spending their time like other adults. So we can move them on. If they can self-monitor, then they can, you know, they can often move on. Allows for generalization. Okay, so if they're watching their own behavior in your session, it's going to be more likely that they can watch their own behavior in their classroom, at YMCA camp, whatever it might be. Okay, more self-awareness, so you get freebie learning, right? So freebies are the best when a kid just kind of starts doing something that you didn't teach them directly. If they're monitoring their own behavior, you're going to see more of it. Okay? And these aren't things I'm making up. You'll see the research in the back. I researched this quite in-depthly. Oh, not a word. What's this one? Can act in addition to in place of lack of. Okay, so if you've got caregivers who their transfer skills not fantastic, they're too busy, they can't be bothered, they're whatever is going on where you're having that barrier. Well, you can transfer the skills to the kids. If they can do it by themselves, then you cut out the middleman, right? Is that ultimately your goal? No, we still need that middleman. They're still going to be part of their lives forever. So we still want to transfer those skills. But if you can get the kid doing it, that's going to be great. So mostly effective when? What are some criteria that we need for these things to happen? Okay, so the behavior needs to be socially significant. It needs to matter. There needs to be buy-in, right? If you're having them track something that's completely irrelevant to their life and they don't care about it, their family doesn't care about it, they're not going to have any reason to follow through with it. This is the case for any behavior that we're teaching. It doesn't matter if it's self-monitoring or anything, but it's just, bears repeating. So like if they learn how to do it, now their life gets better, right? They're going to be more likely to do it. If they learn to do it, then then their parents, they kind of indirectly, they get, more good stuff because they're doing something that makes their caregivers' lives easier. Boom, bang, buy-in, okay? Or you have to do it more arbitrarily, which often happens, right? Any picture schedule or reinforcement system, token board, anything like that all operate pretty much, maybe not always, never always, but usually we're doing it on some sort of arbitrary dollars, stickers, toys, candy, whatever it might be. Okay, so they do their thing and then they get something. Because maybe they're not motivated by brushing their teeth, right? I don't understand how kids hate brushing their teeth. My children would do anything to not brush their teeth, and I don't get it. And if you're watching this many years from now, children, good, I embarrassed you publicly, okay? They hate brushing their teeth, so there's no amount of social significance to them about brushing their teeth. Because I don't want to scare them with the drill thing. I don't want to be like, look, if you don't do this, then you're going to have to get your teeth drilled, because then they're never going to go to the dentist again, right? So, but that might actually get them some buy-in. Like, what do we do that? So I'm going to start brushing my teeth. Not going to do it. So I have to use things that are a little bit more arbitrary. Like any skill, this needs to be taught. These are your your five steps to teaching. Now, here's why I said 4, because in the main article that I was reading, it said 4, and then it listed these things, but not with numbers, and I couldn't tell which 2 were together. I have a guess, but I split them into 5, because if I can't tell, then why not just make it 5? Okay, this information might be important sometime in the future, maybe not. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, oh look, it's applied behavior analysis. What's the first thing we have to do? Is we have to operationally define the target behavior. Okay, so I didn't just tell you that I wanted you guys to pay attention. I told you what paying attention to look like. Okay, so and even then it was probably vague, right? What does avoid distractions mean? Okay, what does that mean? Right? It could mean different things to different people. Okay, but we want to operationally define it so we know what it looks like and what it doesn't. Okay, We want to identify what reinforcers will motivate the person to participate in their self-monitoring process, right? So what will they work for? Sounds a lot, again, like, wow, this is just what we do in applied behavior analysis. I get it. Now we're going to start veering, okay? So next we want to design or choose what device we're going to use. How are we going to track this? What is our method of tracking? So are we using the paper? Are we using the clicker? Are we using the, you know, the tokens? How does that translate? Do we then put those results on a chart? When does the reinforcement come? Who delivers it? You know, all of these things. And, you know, we're just touching, you know, any of these mini trainings, right? They're just the tip of the iceberg. So, you know, if you identify these things you want to get into them, there's a lot more work then to be done, okay? I think it was 3 and 4 that went together because once you decide that then you need to teach it, I think those are the ones they wanted to put together. I'm just not sure. But, you know, we need to know that they can do it, right? Do they have the pincher grasp to be able to grab the bean from the one cup and put it in the next cup? Do they have the ability to like scan the paper and draw the smiley face, right? Or do you have to put a smiley face and a sad face and they circle it or touch it or put a sticker on it? Like, what can they do? If they can't engage in the target skill, then, you know, it's over before you even started, right? And then we're going to teach it to a point of independence. This, you know, like all of these things are difficult. But this one's like it's just one number, but it's a process, right? Like anything else, like over time, we're gonna have to start kind of simple, you know, where we're teaching them, you know, like, oh, you know, as they do it, you know, we're touching the smiley face and we're giving them the token or the skittle or whatever it might be until they kind of get comfortable and they can start identifying examples and non-examples, you know, so over time they get to the point where they can start independently doing it. You guys didn't need that part. You guys know how to track your own behavior, right? So when I put that task in front of you, I assume you can do it, okay? We can't make those assumptions. We have to make sure we're teaching it. So make sure it's already in the repertoire, right? It's something they can already do. If it's not something they can already do, yeah, see, where did Rob get this picture? I don't know. I searched for, I got this because I wanted to do something I already knew. So make sure it's something you already know. If it's not, then you've got to teach that thing before you can even start self-monitoring, okay? And you want to do lots of discrimination training in this, okay? So by discrimination training in ABA, we just mean that we're teaching them lots of examples of what this should look like. Yep. Sorting, matching, labeling, tacting, however you're going to do it. And you teach lots of non-examples. This is not paying attention. This is paying attention. This is not paying attention. This is not paying attention. This is paying attention. Until their brain starts to, right? Now I get it. Like when you have that aha moment at one point in your life when you realize that cats and dogs are not the same thing. That happened at some point. You probably can't remember. Maybe you do. I don't know. I don't remember. Okay, but at some point you had an aha moment where you're like, these are not the same thing. Okay? They're not the same thing, but you had to have a lot of examples and non-examples to do that. So one of our ways that I like to kind of represent this. Oh, you've had enough. That's all you can stand. Great, yay! So one of our examples of, and now we're going to take some data. We're going to see if Ashley's on task behavior, if it goes up, stays the same, or can't go down. If we're on task behavior improves after distraction is minimized. ABA. So one of our things that we could do is we can complete these task lists. In order to do that, we were checklists. We really need a task analysis to determine what are the steps, what are the things to completion. So would I start with a list of this many things if I'm teaching self-management? No, right? Thank you, Rosemary. I would not. I would start with one thing, right? I want to know that they can accurately track one thing. But then once I know that they can do that, now I can start working on routines, right? So, we've got lots of Velcro, we've got lots of lamination, right? So you can make these boards where, like these would be, imagine in your mind that they can pick this up and they can move it to the side, right? So this is like an analysis for someone who I believe is working or volunteering at like an animal shelter, right? So did I clock in? Yep, boom. Did I wash my hands? Yep, Did I feed 10 animals? Yep. Did I wash my hands again? Yep. And now I get to have my break. Okay. So, so this is something where like, would we need a reinforcer connected, like an additional reinforcer connected to this? Hopefully you're saying we need more information, Rob. I'm not sure. Maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. Maybe the 10-minute break is the reinforcer, right? Maybe it's not, okay? Because maybe the skill we're teaching is for them to use this accurately, and every time they move one over, we're gonna have to hand them a cookie. And then maybe during the 10-minute break, they get to eat the cookie, or maybe they eat the cookie when you hand it to them. This is behavior analysis. This is what, you know, when Rob Harvey goes to trainings at schools and they're like, what do I do in this situation? I'm like, I can't tell you. I don't know. I don't know the kid, right? So you just have to take this information, roll it around, and determine how that would impact your kids. Boom. Number 2, track your own behavior first. How did we do? How did we do? Between the last space and this space. So not right at this moment. We're doing, you know, the whole interval. That's it. Ashley made improvement. Well done, Ashley. Well done. Stop picking on Ashley. Recorded it for all time. Who is this Ashley person? We can't even see her. And your second code phrase, okay, the second show that Rob is currently watching, let me get the order right, is Samurai Jack. Samurai is Samurai, Jack. It's a cartoon. It's oldish, although there's a new season, a newish season. Yeah, Samurai Jack, number 2. Samurai Jack. Okay, moving on. Here we go. So how do we prompt this, right? So we're ABA providers. We want to make them more successful. Okay, so we taught it. So, you know, first of all, we want to make sure they have everything they need available, right? So if they don't have the paper, then they can't prompt their own behavior. If they don't have the beans, if they don't have the timer, if they don't have the counter, they can't do it. So you're going to make sure that they have what's available. If they're, you know, if they have a checklist that they have to, you know, this previous one where he said they had to feed 10 animals, okay? There's nothing on this checklist that says that they need to get the food, put the food in containers, get so I'm assuming in this case that they've either already mastered that entire process, which is pretty complicated, or that stuff is being handed to them. So like you come to me, I give you the thing, you go feed an animal, you come back to me. So I assume that they have that, so that would fall under materials as well. Okay, unless you have a step on here that says gather materials, then you should be prompting them to get the materials. Okay. Prompt them to observe their behavior. Like, remember, hey guys, are we paying attention? Are our phones away? Are our eyes on the screen? Are we taking notes? So, you know, you want to prompt them like, hey, just to have them check in with themselves, right? And then prompt them to look at their tracking sheet, to use their tracking sheet. I didn't even put use, but they should be using it, so make sure they're actually marking their, you know, pushing the buttons, they're sliding the things over. But then also to check it, to look at it, like how's today going? So that's ultimately, right, you're even in the early stages, you're having them think about their behavior over time, right? So that they can start thinking about those self-evaluation steps, which might be 5 years from now, but you want to plant those seeds now so that they start having the rudimentary beginning skills of that. This is someone prompting someone on a hill. I don't know, making it more likely that they'll get to the top of the hill. It's kind of like prompting. Don't, Rob, just move on. It's not important. All right, so this helps. So you know, now we're kind of looking at some like long-term skills, or at least this one is, okay? But this can help us with teaching a person long-term goal setting, right? So it gets them starting to think about more than just right now, okay? Hopefully at the same time you're teaching them to be in the moment, but you do want them to have some future planning. Okay, so, you know, what are they looking for? So when you have that first conversation, you first meet the caregiver and you're like, what's important to your family, right? Well, I really hope that they get married someday. And this is a 2-year-old nonverbal kid you're sitting in front of, right? That's a very distant future kind of thing. But you should be logging that away in your brain and saying, okay, this is where they want to be. Okay, so what are the steps? What's the task analysis to all of those things? And as scared as I am of AI, I sent out that AI task list thing that one time, and boy, oh boy, is that cool. You could put in getting married, and it would give you like, these are the things you need to do, and be like, oh, we're not even close to any of these things. You could click on any of those things, and it would give you a task list within the task list for all of those things, right? It's scary. Who knows how that even happens? But so you can look at those things, you can create that task analysis, and you can say, okay, what do we need to start with? What do I need to teach them first? Okay. And next, and then to get to that kind of ultimate place where they're hoping to be. And then, you know, they'll have, we probably won't be in our services by that time. That's the hope, right? But you can help them kind of set up those things, and you get, as even little kids, kind of thinking about next steps and future planning and things like that. So it's a pretty cool thing. Without self-monitoring, it's going to be hard to do this kind of stuff. Like if they're not paying attention to their own behavior, and tracking it and generalizing it, it's going to be difficult. Okay. So let's talk about some of the other like intrinsic benefits of a self-management system and some considerations that you need to have as a teacher or therapist or whatever we want to say. So if we're not doing a self-management system, okay, so I'm watching Rosemary, and when she's on task, I hand her a Skittle, right? When she's off task, I like remove a token from her board or something. We don't often do that kind of thing, but let's just imagine that's what we're doing for Rosemary, okay? If I'm doing those things, she's reliant on my judgment to determine her success, right? She has no say in that. She might argue, some of our kids might argue, that maybe like, no, I was paying attention. But most of our kids probably will not. They might engage in problem behavior for the same reason, okay? But they might just be engaging in problem behavior because they're upset about the token, not because, you know, they're actually disagreeing with what you're, and that could be the case for someone who has the language to disagree. I'm getting in the weeds. But the point here being is that there's very little ability to fine tune or change things when you've only got your opinion kind of writing. Okay. So there's just, I'll show you, I brought the book to show you. So Self and Match is this really cool, this is not a Self and Match commercial, but Self and Match is a self-management system. And it has a lot of really cool stuff, and I keep this book in my office. So if anybody wants to come and look at it or make, you know, if you want to look at it, come in and look at it. If you want to order it, I'll show you how to do it. If you want one for your program, talk to me and we'll figure that out. But anyway, so the cool thing about Self and Match is that they didn't really make this concept up. This existed before Self and Match. They just kind of like formalized it. So one of the things you can do is I can say, okay, Ashley, right? You've got your board, I've got my board. Okay. So, and she's working for another Starbucks. Okay. So she needs 10 tokens to earn her next Starbucks. Okay. So for each, what's that? I don't care about you. Yes. So for each block on the board, okay, she has the opportunity to earn 2 tokens. Let me tell you how. Okay. So she earns the first token by doing the target behavior. So if she paid attention, she gets a token. Okay. But she can earn an additional token if her rating matches my rating. Okay. So I write down what I think, how I think she did. She writes down how she thinks she did. We compare. If we both have a happy face, she gets an extra token. If we both have a sad face, she gets an extra token. Okay. So here's where your brain should be thinking, so Rob, we're going to reward a kid when they're engaged in a non-example behavior. We're going to reinforce problem behavior. Yes, because you're not, I understand that you might be reinforcing the problem behavior, but what really are we intending to reinforce? Self-awareness, self-monitoring, accurate self-monitoring, okay? That's the battle we're fighting. That's what we want to get to. Okay, so we want them to be able to accurately self-report. Now, if we both match and they did the thing, then they get 2 points, right? So it's just something that you don't have. Now, if I'm working with Rosemary and I'm doing all the choices, I can say like you paid great attention, 2 tokens, 5 tokens, whatever. So there's always nuance within any system, but this is really where we're building that, you know, that self-awareness. I can also say if they're, you know, if I notice that they self-corrected, okay, I can reward that behavior. If they're watching what they're doing and they're like, oh, I almost talked to that person that just came in, but then they decide not to, okay, I can heavily reward that. And I can even say like, hey, like, why did you put a sad face? And you're like, oh, well, you know, when that person walked in, I waved at them. It's like, yeah, but after you waved at them, then you went back to paying attention. So I'm actually gonna say, I say, smiley face, here's your token, right? So you can help them kind of fine tune their own self-awareness, you know, teach them some grace. But yeah, so there's, you know, look at any of these systems because I really like that kind of ability to be able to build that awareness, you know, to, you know, reinforce them for self-reporting accurately. You can use video modeling, which is something that I do not think that we use enough because there's a lot of, I mean, to be honest, there's a lot of barriers to that, right? Like, what are you going to video them with? It cannot be your phone. Right? You cannot have videos of your kids on your phone. It doesn't matter if you delete them immediately. It doesn't matter if the parents tell you you can, because anything that's on your phone, fine friends, is not just on your phone. It's on everything. The cloud, the whole thing, right? So you should never have any pictures or videos or anything of any of your kids, okay? So if you're gonna do this, you have to do it with something the family has. So the family uses it, maybe they've got an old school camcorder. Oh boy, it's like a dinosaur reference right there. But you know, maybe it's their iPad or something like that. But if you have the ability to do so, okay, you can record them, you know, you can record yourself. That's one thing you can do with your phone. So I use this constantly in my groups. I record examples and non-examples of behavior, me doing it. And then we watch it because I'll tell you, kids and teens and young adults, they will watch something on a screen 1,000 times faster than they'll watch you do it in front of them, right? The same exact behavior, they love it on the screen. So you can record that all you want yourself, right? So you can show them like, all right, let's watch this. All right, let's watch Mr. Rob. Is he paying attention or is he not paying attention, right? Is he hitting or is he not hitting? Is he running away or is he not running? Whatever behavior you're looking at, okay? Is he using kind words, which is the kind words? What does that even mean? Right, but you can teach a person to differentiate whatever it is you're saying by showing them examples and non-examples. Okay, this is where you have to get the family to do it. You can record them and you can watch it together. Let's watch, you know, little Adrian playing. Okay, is she playing nicely? Yes or no? I think. What do you think? Okay, we agree. You know, so you can have them look at their own behavior, right? And you have to, of course, make sure that they have that kind of awareness of like what's going on, it's something that I did, and they can kind of talk about that. So that, you know, some of our kids might not be ready for that, but it's a tool in your back pocket, right? Some other useful tools you can use, we've kind of referenced throughout the time. Timers are great. Okay, when the timer goes off, check your behavior, you know, see what you're doing. Checklists, picture schedules, task analyses, right? So you're going to be coming up with those. All right, you want to do this? Let's break down the steps. And then video models we just talked about. These are good things to have on hand. So this is something that I do as a self-monitoring activity with a lot of the teens and young adults that I work with. We call it check the mirror. In my box full of social skills things that I carry around, there is always a mirror in there. And so we do a lot of things where we do something and look in the mirror, or I just kind of use it as a prompt. Okay. But you know, I have like social rules, and one of the social rules is never leave the bathroom without checking the mirror. Okay. But you know, we do all kinds of activities for them to work on, like, am I too loud or too quiet? Right? Am I, you know, which you can't see in the mirror. I get that. That's a funny first example. But I still call it check the mirror because they get the idea of like working at your own behavior. How are my teeth? Is my hair okay? Is there anything on my shirt? Is my collar weird? Okay. So, you know, we want them to engage in this sort of behavior, right? So that they're checking their own behavior, and that builds, hopefully it generalizes to more things than just when they walk by a mirror. But if when they walk by a mirror, they check the mirror, that's a huge win, right? Because a lot of humans, many people are completely unaware of their own appearance. That really, you know, makes it hard to, you know, to succeed in the world, right? Right, Rob. Okay, so preparation for transition. So we kind of mentioned this before, but you need these skills to be able to do most of the next things. So the insurance companies are saying like, all right, let's get to the next thing. Let's move along, let's get to the next thing. But if, you know, you can't go to outpatient therapy and not be able to answer questions like, oh, why do you think you did that? Or, you know, what was going on? What was happening? You know, like, so, you know, maybe you can, but you can't really, it'd be difficult to have meaningful participation in a service like, you know. So we want them to be able to self-reflect, to self-monitor, to kind of look at their own behavior, to do something awesome like acceptance and commitment therapy. So that's like a form of ABA. In order to do some of the higher level things, you need to be able to self-monitor. You need to be able to say what your values are, say, are you moving towards them, and things like that. Things that we often, so group services we often move people to, psych rehab is one that, you know, has become popular. You need to be able to choose your own goals in psych rehab. Okay, can you choose your own goals? If you can't accurately self-monitor, maybe, I'm not going to say no, but I'm going to say it's really different. Okay, and you can use these things to incorporate them in their own treatment plan. If they have these skills of self-monitoring, then you can start asking them what they want to work on, right? You can ask them how they want to track it, like what would work best for you. Would a buzzer work better, or a timer, or a beeper on your phone? That's one thing, but like a, you know, an app on your phone that goes up. Can they choose what they're working for? You know, like if you make it, you know, like what do you think you should earn? And these things may seem, if you're thinking about some of your kids, it might feel far-fetched, but that just means you have a little bit of work to do before you get there. Because all of us are certainly doing these sorts of things, right? Choosing our own goals and choosing our own work, self-reinforcing. We're deciding like, okay, did I earn the cupcake or not? And maybe we're screwing it up, right? But we're actively choosing that. We're like, I didn't earn it, but I'm going to eat it anyway. Or I didn't earn it according to these, you know, criteria, but I had a rough day, so I'm going to eat it anyway. But all that is all of this, right? So we want our kids to be able to engage in that stuff. So let's look at some examples just to kind of bring it to your brains a little bit more specifically. All right, so here we got Charlemagne, the pincher. Okay, so they're the pinching kids. So we want to decrease the pinching, Ashley and Rob. Okay, at the end of the 5-minute period, okay, the BHT comes over. So there's some prompting built into this. So like you're going to see different examples where we're at different levels of this. Okay, so 5 minutes is over. I come over. I say, did we pinch? Right. So they pull out their tracker like you guys have, and they do a smiley face or a sad face depending on whether they did it during that time. Okay. The BHT is always circling one in a different color. This is what we talked about before. If they match, they get 2 Swedish fish. If they, you know, if they did the right behavior, they get 1 Swedish fish. So they can get up to 2 Swedish fishes. Delicious. Question? What? Fish. Delicious. Fish. Swedish fish. Fishes. Swedish fishes. Here we have Ernest. His names are just randomly. I was just like, or Charlemagne. Ernest. So we want him to raise his hand more in class. So you want to teach examples of not. Now that one's pretty like, okay, is this raised hand? How do you want it to raise? Might be easy. He likes pirates. Okay. So we get all these plastic doubloons, and we got this chest overflowing with gold coins, because as they say in the comedy, pirates never bring a big enough chest. It's always overflowing. Yeah, so we get some plastic doubloons, okay? We put a picture prompt on the cup. This is what I want you to do, is raise your hand, okay? So at the end of every time he raises his hand during an activity, he's able to move a doubloon. You might see a problem forming with this, right? So Ernest might quickly just be like, boom, boom, right? But this is where like this has to be specific to your learner. It might be so uncomfortable for Ernest to raise his hand that he still won't do it that often. And you can tweak it, right? That's what we do is once it's working, okay, now it's happening too much. Now we're gonna tweak, just like we do with manding, you know, they quickly get to the point where they're like, oh, I can ask for anything, and they start asking for too many things, then we change our system. So he moves the doubloon from the cup to the chest, he puts it in the chest, okay? At this time, right, so we have Ernest's teachers prompting him to do all of this, okay? But if he does it himself, so if I see Ashley raise her hand, I go over and say, you can put a doubloon in the cup, right? But if I see Ashley do it by herself, Ernest in the example, I see her put one in the cup, I'm like, oh my gosh, she did it all by herself. You get an additional doubloon, okay? So we're teaching that independence for providing extra reinforcement. And then they can spend the doubloons in the valuable stored class at the end of the time. All right, your third, mark down here, we've been paying attention, smiley face, medium face, sad face. No, she's gonna have to get her own training after this. Check somebody else and make sure. Oh, good. Oh, yes. Thank you. Perfect. So your third and final keyword. The third show that Rob is currently watching is Fear the Walking Dead. Okay? Fear the Walking Dead. That's the third show. I'm behind on it. If any of you were like, oh, I gotta ask Rob about what just happened in the new episode, I'm season being, so no spoilers. All right, we got 3 faces on our paper. We got our third code word phrase, which is Fear the Walking Dead. And we're moving on to our next example. Here we have Sahara. Okay, and Sahara is at the beginning of her journey of self-monitoring. So right now we're really just building up her ability to recognize and start looking at her own behavior. Okay, so she's got the chart. Okay, we want her to put her shoes, when she takes her shoes off, we want them to put on the mat by the door. This is something I should do for my children because you can never find their shoes. They literally could be anywhere in the upstairs bathroom. They've taken to just walking in from the car barefoot, so they leave their shoes in the car, and then that person goes to work, and then they have no shoes. So I should do this. This is subliminal for myself. Okay, so Sahara is working on these skills and also putting her shoes by the door. Okay, after we prompt her, so we're like, okay, we help her take off her shoes. We like lead her over. We help her set them down, and after she sets them on the mat, we tickle her, right? And she laughs, and we're happy, and it's having so much fun. And then, okay, we also pull out the chart and we say, you did it. Okay, you get to put the sticker, and you might have to like hand over hand, help her put the sticker on the spot. And after she puts the sticker on, she gets more tickles and she laughs and we have fun. And she starts over time, the more she does this, building up this association, with when I do this thing, and you could slowly back out certain phases of the prompts until she's putting her shoes down, and then she's looking at the stack, and she's running over, and she's taking the sticker and she's putting it on herself, right? You can imagine this whole story about the cute little Sahara, right? Next example. Here we have Dennis. I found this, I sent this to Ashley from Teachers Love Hacks on Instagram. Okay, I don't even follow them, but it still was in my algorithm. So they have this chart, and it's got Velcro, but instead of pulling it from one side to the other, you just push the flap up. Oh, I love it so much. I love it so much. So we want him to go through his whole nighttime routine independently. We maybe just want to say, hey, Dennis, don't forget to do your nighttime routine, or whatever we're going to call it. Okay, get your board. So he gets his things. And as he goes through, he completes all the things, and as long as he's got all of his flaps up, and we can check to make sure all these things happened, okay, then he earns an extra book for mom and dad. He's gonna get a book no matter what. We're not gonna be like, you get no book, go to sleep with no book, right? You might, but I would not recommend it. They get extra, okay? So that starts, building up this independence, and before you know it, they're doing it. okay? Here's a more like advanced kind of concept, right? So Helena wants to get better at shooting baskets, and she read this kind of nonsense stuff about the 10,000 hours thing, which I've read a lot recently. It's just kind of an arbitrary thing, and it really depends on what you're talking about. But she read it anyway, and she wants to be the best at the basketball, okay? So this is one where she's having like a collaborative kind of, kind of approach with her behavior analyst, and they make this chart, and they say, okay, at the end of the day, when you're sitting down for dinner, okay, you get out your chart, okay, and if you practice that day, you get to put a sticker on there, no matter how much you did. She likes stickers, maybe they're basketball stickers, I don't know what they are, right? But she likes them, she puts them on, and then she records how much time she practiced that day. So there's probably a timer involved or something else, or we're just letting her remember. I think it was about, might not matter, right? Like if I say like count your calories, maybe you use an app for it, or maybe you guesstimate, right? Whatever, you're still monitoring, okay? And then this is the coolest part to me. You made it up, Rob. So cool. What I said is so cool. But the VA is helping her graph the information so she can see her progress over time, and that might be the only reinforcer that she needs. She might be motivated by seeing progress over time. This is just another example of the chore chart with the pushing the things up. So I'm gonna kind of move past this one. But he gets to go to the good playground. It's a little further away. He still gets to go to the playground no matter what he does. But if he earns the extra thing, the parents engage in a little bit harder of a behavior. It would work to go to that playground. It is rocket. Rocket. Self and match, I showed you guys this, but there you go. A pleasant journey, one that begins with scientific research and ends in, taking over the world. So a couple quick ideas that I'm going to breeze by you. Let's see how accurate that clock is. It's very accurate. All right, so we talked about natural communities of reinforcement in a previous training. Having self-awareness will move you towards natural communities of reinforcement. No ifs, ands, or buts. But just like we said with natural communities of reinforcement, the more you know, the more aware you are. Our kids are more likely to be depressed, anxious, suicidal than the general population. So when they realize they're different, so this is one of those like catch-22s. So when we realize like, oh yeah, people aren't playing with me, I'm not talking to people, that could be a bummer, right? So it's just something we want to be aware of. You can teach internal feelings and things like that, but just like with anything else, we have a difficult time with this because I don't know if it's right or not, right? I can't actually see their, negative thoughts. We saw that in one of the after school treatment plans. We put that stuff in there a lot, but I can't actually tell how many negative thoughts they have, right? They can report it, but I can't tell if they got an accurate report or not. And then just in conclusion, here we are floating high above everything, happy, having taught a pivotal skill. So a skill that opens you up to all these other skills, right? So teaching you to shoot a basketball is just teaching you to shoot a basketball. Now that's not fair because maybe you can play with your friends. Okay, got example. Okay, teaching you to start, nope, tie your shoes still. But this was a big one. It opens you up to a lot of things. You can do all kinds of things. And it's generally makes life easier for other people, for the parents if they're tracking their own behavior. And make your final happy face, sad face. How do you do at the very end of the training? And then here's the references. I will send these out so you don't need to copy them down. There you have it. That's a wrap. Bravo to all of you for staying. All right, I'm gonna
Thanks,
stop.
Rob. Harvey, good training.